Rick here. The good folks at Model Railroad Hobbyist magazine had asked me to just do a little history on the railroad, and what better place to start than this poster board that my wife made, which shows some of the history of the railroad. Years ago I was into boating, and the local lake dried up, and so what to do but maybe find another thing to do, another hobby. So I built this first kit here by Design Preservation Models, which is the United Bank. Actually, it's First National Bank. I call it United Bank. And I enjoyed that so much, I built another kit, which is Midge's Corner Cafe. And after building a number of kits, I decided I had to have some place to put these, so what better way than to build a model railroad? And thus the Richland Railroad was born. The name itself is after the name of the subdivision I grew up in St. Matthews, Kentucky, which is a suburb of Louisville. And so this first one was a 6x9. It was based loosely on a track plan out of an atlas book, which is a double mainline loop and a couple of sidings. And I enjoyed running the railroad, and that was in March of '08. We went to the Piedmont Division open house, and my wife came back and said, "You need a bigger model railroad." And that was in April '08, so started finishing the room here in the basement. We did most of the work ourselves, and Midge helped a lot with that also, as far as doing all the work and stuff when it came to putting up some of the drywall and things like that. Here you can see the construction in the curved area of the room. Doing a little bit of taping of the joints here. And we tried sanding the drywall, and that was such a disaster we hired somebody to do that. And then here with the walls all done, floor painted, we're ready to move in. The first thing I did was actually to put in a unit here for the freight yard, which is the Matthews Freight Yard, named after St. Matthews. And this is what it looks like here, a little lonely by itself in May of '08. Kept adding to that module here. You can see where we've added a corner portion to the yard. And then the curved portion goes back in the area where the mountain area now lives and resides. And originally the alcove, which was only 6 feet deep, this is the section in that area. Here you can see where we started to do some of the construction of the mountain area. And continuing on here with some more work. Added a backdrop from Backdrop Warehouse. And finally starting to put some track down. So there's over 102 feet of main line initially. And I used a laser level with a tripod to set the grade, which is around 2.5%. Total of 8 inches from the high to the low. This is what it looked like here in the railroad room 5 months after starting that process. And the view as the Piedmont tour of 2008. And another view here looking in October of 2011. During that period of time, a lot of work was done on the landscaping portion. Now, the concept itself, it really wasn't designed that well. It just mainly wanted to have a railroad to put my stuff, and so I can't say that I was really very organized in creating the track plan. So let's take a look here at the railroad. Now as we enter the railroad room, just to show you some of the areas here. Starting as we come into the room here, you can see the Matthew Freight Yard, which is a section about 13.5 feet long that goes from the one end of the wall to the other. And as we continue around, you can see some of the part of Hoovertown here, the new extension, which has not been completed, along with the mountain area and back. The first front part of the Hoovertown, which was on the original layout and incorporated in this layout. And then moving on around, you can see the alcove area. And that's the entire room. I don't have the dimensions of the room. I know it's about 13.5 feet deep by all the way to the alcove here is about 20 feet. And of course that's broken up by the corner wall here. Now here I've moved to the end of the Matthew yard, the other end of the Matthews freight yard, and just showing you how the layout looks as we look around the different areas of the room from the different angle. That's the alcove area, looking back in that area, and of course the mountain area. This of course is the alcove area, which is the latest part of the layout, and I'll move down the other end so you can get a look at it from that direction. I'll move down to the very end here. And so this is what it looks like from the far end of the alcove, looking back in at the layout. Over here at you can see the Matthews yard in the distance, and then of course the Hoovertown portion over here in the front end. One thing I did know when I started building the layout was I did want a dramatic focal point when you first come into the area, and thus the mountain area, which is about a little over 7 feet high here in the back, in the highest area that you can see up here, as far as where we up in this area right up here. The whole area is based on the southeast part of the United States, with L&N being the railroad. Now, it's not prototypical by any stretch of the imagination. It is definitely freelance, but I do love the L&N because as a boy I watched it run down the tracks behind me. Moving over here into the Matthews freight yard, some areas of interest is Potter's Pond, which is my very first attempt at modeling water, and it does have some homemade or handmade cattails in the back. Little areas of junk around the back here. My wife does a lot of the landscaping, and this is some of her work. She does a great job on doing the final detail work. Inside of the roundhouse there is a sound module with a welder module that is triggered by magnets on some of the freight cars that run over reed switches in the track. Never did finish much of the freight yard. A lot of work to be done on it. And one of the major mistakes was the fact that I got a great deal on all the tracks and turnouts. As a new modeler, I didn't realize what brass was. And so most of the yard is not really that functional because it's made of brass. If I were to keep the railroad, I would have eventually gotten rid of that brass. Moving back here in the back here, my very first scratch-built structure is right back here, is the hobo shack right by the tunnel portal. And that is handmade out of sticks and out of the backyard, and a few pieces of lumber I had left over. Down here, some of the details you can see. There's a little truck back here in the bushes and so on. All the rocks are hand carved. I love carving plaster rocks. And you've probably seen before details on the construction and the forced perspective I used on the mountain area here. Back in the back of Hoovertown, this is all temporary, put in for the Piedmont open house. And you can see here some of the buildings that eventually would be in the layout that probably will be used on the new layout, Richland Railroad version 2. So many of these, the idea was standalone houses in the back section, row houses here in the middle section, and of course some more buildings, so on. There's a kit bash of two of the design preservation models, Roy's Safe and Lock. And of course up in the front is the main part of Hoovertown, which, like I say, did survive from the original layout. That has hopefully we make it to the new layout. By the way, the lady there on the Coca-Cola billboard is actually my wife. One of the major mistakes I also made on the layout was I wanted a dramatic trestle, so I made the track in that short period of time to go up to be able to have that trestle installed, which means a very steep grade in the foreground here. Not prototypical. The grade is about 2.5% to sometimes 3% there. Makes it very difficult to pull any long trains up there without them actually slipping. Trestle is one of the jail innovative kits that I built while watching TV over a period of about 40 to 50 hours worth of work. Oh, and yes, the lake is too blue. I wanted a blue lake, and the good news is it is a hatch that is removable to get to the lighting above it, so it is replaceable. And if I had the time and we're going to keep working on the railroad, I would replace that with a more realistic looking color. So that's some of the information about the mountain area and Hoovertown. We're running Digitrax here with a Zephyr control with the local nets around. I do have a wireless duplex throttle for the Digitrax. I did find the throttle difficult to learn, but once you learn it, it's fairly easy to operate. Of course, many of you have seen the mural work here done by an artist, Linda. I really love the work she did here. It's very nicely done, and I think it adds a lot to the layout. She was going to probably continue to do some more work if I did keep going on the railroad. Of course, we won't be doing that. The whole area here in the alcove area was designed for operations. As I became interested in that later on in railroading, when I started hanging out with my friends of the NCIOG, or the North County Interchange Operating Group. And here you'll see Palmer Industries, which is of course a cardboard or foam board stand-in. And there's some other industries along the line here. Triangle Industries on this side and a couple over on the other side. The back corner features, of course, the infamous Buck and Loretta trailer scene. And also on that particular area is Old Man Skinner's place. The hopes are to be able to take this whole module out and be able to use it in a new version. I think I can do that. I've got a nice corner I can put it in, even on a shelf layout. And going back around here on the scenery. Of course, down here would have been the future home of the gravel plant. You can see I got the tracks in, and I do have the area here where it would have existed. What would happen here is the road would come down from Buck and Loretta's right over here, and would run down across over here, continue down across the tunnel and into this area. Along this area would have been the little bar and grill. There would have been more industries along here also. As far as coming down this area, a road would have run along the side here in this area, and also would have finished this mountain area. The road would have come up the hill here, and you can see where it would have gone up the area onto this wooded hill. And there is a pad up here for a little cabin which would have existed right here, probably with a pretty detailed interior and be lighted. So that kind of gives you an idea of what the railroad looks like, and to get an idea of the space by actually being in the room here and having a video instead of looking at a bunch of still pictures or separate videos. And thanks for watching.